So the book you see on the table there, Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist by Roger Patterson, was written and published prior to ever shooting the famous Bigfoot footage, which we'll take a look at here in a second. And what a lot of people don't realize about the Patterson-Gimlin film is that they were actually out looking for Bigfoot. It wasn't an accident that they didn't just come across Bigfoot with like a 35 millimeter camera in the woods in 1967. And I feel like a lot of people think that they question the credibility of it because of that. But I don't think so. I mean, like, if you're in search of something, usually when you find it, right?
I mean, yeah.
You know, I want to say that it's not. I feel like when you're not looking for stuff, that's when you always find it. When you're not ready for it. I feel like that's kind of, at least in my life, that's how it's been. I always see the craziest stuff when I have absolutely no way to capture it, and people just gotta take my word for it.
I mean, for life decisions, yes, I agree. But, like, there's times that I've told my kid, like, if you would just look for it, you would find it, you know?
Right.
So I can see it from 2 points of view. Because sometimes it's right in front of her, and you're like, really? You didn't even look?
In 1967, how many people do you think were out with very expensive 35 millimeter camera technology? Was basically non-existent for the layman, right?
Yeah.
So,
no doubt, it was you're pretty much limited to like multi-$1,000, and that's like in that era's money at that point. I mean, there were probably some smaller film cameras that existed, but they probably weren't to a degree that you could tough them through the woods and have them still be able to shoot film by the time you got there without paying a good amount of money. Having that kind of equipment would be something like you'd have it for a reason.
it's hard to have that perspective today because everybody's got a camera in their pocket, but they were not common and they were very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's more affordable and accessible to be a filmmaker today than it ever has in history. In order to have captured that footage, you would have had to have a very expensive camera out in the middle of nowhere, which probably wasn't happening a lot. So
no doubt.
So, in other words, Roger Patterson writes this book and subsequently finds Bigfoot. That book comes out in 1966, and in 1967 he shoots the film. The other thing that people don't recognize is like the costume technology of the day isn't anywhere near where it's at today.
Yeah,
you know?
no doubt. There weren't people weren't sticking rubber to themselves. It was literally just a fabric suit, probably made up with a zipper on the back or something of that nature.
I always say check out like Planet of the Apes. I love those movies, and that was probably the best that we had out there in terms of a comparison to something like you might have seen in the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now, there's also been a number of people who have come out and said I was in the Bigfoot suit. I'm not really going to address them today because to me they obviously wanted book deals. Debunking by these various characters. There's been a few of them. It's not just one, and they all claim to have been in the Sasquatch, and they all also publish a book afterwards. You know, after they come out, and this is
Sounds a little suspicious.
Right. So it was on this day in 1967 in Northern California that it's actually in Bluff Creek, California.
Okay.
You know what? I should pull that up so we can see exactly where that's at. So this is where it was shot, or close to it anyway. This Bluff Creek, California. Take of that what you will, but in '67 it was probably a lot more remote than it is today.
Klamath.
Although
Klamath
there's
is a city in Fallout 2.
Well, in the
You
mountains,
visit it.
Shasta, it has some crazy stories that's happened there, and it doesn't look too far. People have
Shasta
gone missing.
Trinity.
There's all kinds of crazy stories from there.
You think they're connected?
I don't know.
Could be possible.
So what I'm going to show here is, it's not the entirety of the film. The reality is the entirety of the film encompassed other things that were filmed on the reel because they were messing with the camera when they're out in the woods on these excursions. So it's not just this Bigfoot footage. And we're going to show you a stabilized version of the Patterson-Gimlin footage so you can kind of get a better feel for the creature itself. Now, I think to date, this is the most compelling Sasquatch footage still in existence.
The chunky.
And part of that is...
Chunky monkey.
There's a period of time in like the 90s where a lot of the like the Freeman footage, we might take a look at that today, and other Sasquatch films were shot on like magnetic tape, like VHS, and VHS-C was like a smaller VHS format. So a lot of the commercial cameras at the time were magnetic tape, and they were shooting in like 480p interlaced. In any case, the consumer video cameras from the 90s and early 2000s shot in really low video quality, and with later technology it was impossible to blow them up to get better copies of the footage. Whereas a film reel, you see this all the time with early movies. You know, you might go buy a movie that was made in the 70s on Blu-ray and it's in 1080. Well, that's because they're taking the film and processing it digitally.
Your resolution is your film grain, and your film grain's going to be a lot tinier than you can ever get pixels.
Typically, right?
Yeah.
Well, this creates this like counterintuitive thing that you would think the films of Sasquatch that come out later would be better, but there's a period of time when they're not. Because you can take a picture essentially of this frame by frame with a high resolution digital camera and pump out a better quality film.
You can pretty much, however high your resolution a camera you can get, you can make the film that resolution for the most part.
There is more footage of the Sasquatch in the Patterson-Gimlin film here. It's just not in this little stabilized clip we're showing you, and it's mostly of it walking away. The only real value of it is it gives you a good look at the bottom of its foot. So, I don't know, what strikes you guys about this? I don't want to ask a leading question here. What do you guys think about this film?
As I said earlier, chunky monkey.
I feel like it hits the ground really hard, like harder than a normal like person would walk. It feels heavy.
So in particular, I think if you look at its thigh, it seems to have muscle mass and recoil.
Yeah, there's like striations appearing.
The reality is the original film is lost, and only copies of the film exist. So generally, the highest quality ones are composites of the first copies of the film. They overlay them together to get the best image they think they can get. Because Roger Patterson had passed away in 1972, and I think, you know, wherever the footage was, his wife lost it or something. Now, we were talking about the film the other day about the shine off the fur.
See it here too.
Yeah, I do see it here too. And, you know, like people will say like, oh, you can see the zipper down its back. Well, I mean, to me, it looks like a hairline. Like you can see a hairline running down its butt crack. There are features on the film on the thigh that they say you can see like they call it like the hernia. There's like a bump that comes up on the thigh. Mm-hmm. But see the way it just jiggles like it's flesh, like it's a mass.
Yeah. So it's either someone who's like 6'5" and 350 pounds in a skin-tight fursuit in 1967, or we've got Sasquatch. Now, Occam's razor leads me to believe we have Sasquatch.
Well, does it?
Absolutely. That makes more sense than someone who's 6'5" and 350 pounds walking through the woods in a fursuit in 1967 in my head.
So I can tell you about this film that Bob Gimlin, he has expressed that he wishes he never saw it and never filmed it. Because
interesting.
Because of the ridicule it brought down upon him and his family. That he kind of wished I'll paraphrase him, but he said something like, I wish the damn thing was never in my life.
Interesting.
But you know what? Now it's like you don't even want to claim if you have seen it or not, or have taken videos of it or not, Because nobody will believe you anyway.
Yeah, everyone's just gonna come out and say fake, fake, CGI, AI, fake, fake.
Right.
I mean, I saw a jaguar literally up in the mountains and told local people about it, and everybody's like, no, nobody's ever seen that here. A few days later, it was spotted on a gang cam, and like, there's images, but nobody believed me.
So, one of the things about this film is that there's a supporting evidence. They do have the cast of the footprints from the area. And they also studied the site pretty extensively and measured out its stride. So there's additional evidence that backs this film up. I think it's amazing that in 1967 this was shot, and it's still such a compelling piece that has yet to be truly debunked to this day.
Debated consistently.
I mean, we're talking about 55 years later, 55 years today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is still the iconic pictures of Sasquatch, iconic image of a Sasquatch. Now, you know, one of the things, a lot of people don't know this, but it's a female, presumably a female. You guys have seen this before, so I'm sure it doesn't shock you, but you can see its breast.
Yeah.
When it turns, you can see some very obvious mammary glands. Her name is Patty, and it's her birthday, as far as we know.
Respect.
Do we sing to
her? No. I will say, I believe they found evidence of dermal ridges in the footprints cast at the site, which are like, you know, the markings on your hands and feet.
Almost, not the fingerprints, but like the lines, the fortune teller lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they find them on like the very edge of the footprint. Like you can see some dermal ridges. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Idaho State University professor, who inherited Grover Krantz's Bigfoot cast collection, studied the gait in this film and said it's a very non-human gait the way it walks. That its knees kind of like knocked together. Almost like somebody with like hip dysplasia or something like that.
Well, it walks kind of like how you would imagine someone would walk. Have you guys seen that episode of Family Guy where Stewie follows people around with a tuba and he's like, "Boo-doo, boo-doo, boo-doo." You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, he
one.
walks like that sound, and that sound is definitely not how a human walks. So
he walks with that sound.
Yeah.
All right. He's got the tuba sound. We'll watch a little bit more of the uncut video. It's like B-roll, right?
Ooh, it is blown out.
Yeah, it's pretty blown out, but it still gives us some context anyhow.
No doubt.
I want to say Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, or maybe it was just Patterson, but they were like rodeo cowboys.
Okay, interesting.
So they were pretty gruff guys. Like I said, Roger Patterson passed away in 1972, and Bob Gimlin, I believe, is still alive. He was born in 1931. How old does that make him today? Up there.
Almost 100.
He doesn't talk about the film much. Like I said, the last interview I saw with him, he just said he wished he wants nothing to do with it, you know? Seemed like a super nice guy, though.
Yeah. Did he seem like someone that would fake it?
No, neither of these guys. I mean, I can't say that about Roger Patterson because the material just isn't there. Yeah. He didn't seem to live into the information age the way Bob Gimlin did.
Gotcha.
But Bob Gimlin seems about as credible and as humble as they come.
I feel like I'm watching an episode of like Little House on the Prairie that's been re-recorded on tape 17 times over.
Right, yeah. When you can see these guys are on horseback. You know, these are just little details of the story that people don't know, you know?
Oh, it's interesting. I've never seen this side of the footage.
I think there's some debate over what the FPS on it was, whether it was 16 or 18 FPS, and I think this, you see, here is the portion of him getting the camera upright, running after it, tries to steady it out. Yeah, he's just trying to get close enough. I believe this includes the walk away, which is a little bit more than what we saw. He tries to get closer again.
I can't make it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. There it is there.
Like thermal footage.
Like directly in front. Now, I've seen this frame zoomed in on, some of these frames, and they show the bottom of the foot. What would you expect from a living, breathing species in terms of how its footfall happens? Mm-hmm. And the general consensus is that it doesn't walk like heel to toe like a human. It seems to walk more flat-footed, where the ball of its foot almost comes down first.
Kind of like almost waddles, but not really. It's like a plop, like that.
And again, Jeff Meldrum's done really good work on it, anthropologist, and he specializes in bipedal locomotion. And his insistence is that the creature caught in the film has a very non-human gait. That's consistent with the footprints that are found, not just here, but in other credible cases.
That's interesting. Going back to that picture we were showing earlier with the ridges, I mean, that is a consistent physical marker across the board, yeah. Out of all of the Bigfoot footage I've seen throughout my life, I am inclined to believe that it is the incredible footage. It seems to me to be the most consistent and reliable story from the people around it, and the most armored to scrutiny footage that there is around. And I think you can still find ways to scrutinize it, but it's a lot more difficult than you see with other footage.
I agree. Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline from Dark Dial. If you liked our video, please like, subscribe, or give us a follow. And check us out Friday nights live at 6 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Central. And check out darkdial.com, and we hope to see you Friday.